Hello everyone, this is the CircuitPython weekly meeting for April 14th, 2025. It's the time of the week where we get together to talk about all things CircuitPython. I'm Scott and I'm sponsored by Adafruit to work on CircuitPython. CircuitPython is a version of Python designed to run on tiny computers called microcontrollers. CircuitPython development is primarily sponsored by Adafruit, so if you want to support Adafruit and CircuitPython, consider purchasing hardware from adafruit.com, or Adafruit hardware from resellers is good as well. This meeting is hosted on the Adafruit Discord server. You can join anytime by going to the URL adafru.it/discord. We hold the meeting in the CircuitPython dev text channel and the CircuitPython voice channel. This meeting typically happens on Mondays at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific, except when it coincides with a U.S. holiday. In the notes doc, there's a link to a calendar you can view online or add to your favorite calendar app. We also send notifications about upcoming meetings via Discord. If you'd like to receive these notifications, ask us to add you to the CircuitPythonistas Discord role. There is a shared notes document that accompanies the meeting and recording. You can contribute to this document beforehand. The final notes doc includes timestamps to go along with the video, so you can use the doc to skip around and view the parts of the video that interest you most. The meeting tends to run 30 to 60 minutes. After each meeting, we post a link to the next meeting's notes document to the CircuitPython dev channel on the Adafruit Discord. Check the pinned messages to find the latest notes doc so you can add your notes for the following meeting. If you wish to participate but cannot attend, you can leave hug reports and status updates in the document for us to read during the meeting. So, the meeting is held in 5 parts. First is community news. This is a look at all things CircuitPython and Python on hardware in the community. It's a chosen set of items from our Python on Microcontrollers newsletter. The second part is the state of CircuitPython libraries in Blinka. It's a quantitative overview of the entire project. It's a chance to look at the project by the numbers and separate from our status updates. Third part is hug reports. This is the first of 2 round robins. It's an opportunity to highlight the good things folks are doing and taking the time to recognize the awesome folks in our community. Fourth is status updates. It is an opportunity to report on what we've been up to. Take a couple of minutes and talk about what you've been doing in the last week since the last meeting and what you'll be up to over the next week. Lastly, the 5th part is in the weeds. It is an opportunity for more long-form discussions. These discussions can come out of status updates, but more likely something you've identified ahead of time is too long for status updates, and you can drop in the notes doc. I'll say that if you're unable to make the meeting, you're welcome to add notes to the notes doc, and the host will read those off. So that's how the meeting will go, and with that, we'll get started with community news. So I will take a timestamp and be on our way. If I have my fingers on the right place. So community news is a sneak peek or a brief glimpse at topics covered in the Python for Microcontrollers newsletter. It is just a few things out of that. It is not the full newsletter. So we'll talk about how to sign up at the end. But first, MicroPython has a super interesting ALIF, A-L-I-F, ensemble microcontroller port. A few days ago, Adafruit's Lady Ada had an interview with OpenMV. OpenMV is releasing 2 new programmable AI camera modules on Kickstarter. The MicroPython team has announced the merging of support for the ALIF ensemble MCUs used in the OpenMV modules on GitHub. The code allows MicroPython to run on ALIF Express chips and the OpenMV AE3 camera board, with lots of links there. Thank you to Foamy Guy for dropping those in the chat. Next up is Python related. It's about the Python lifecycle. Have you ever wondered where the Python version you're using is in its development lifecycle? The Python Developer's Guide keeps track for you to help decide when to upgrade your codebase. There's a link there. I should say for CircuitPython, we typically do a major release every year, and we support 2 major releases at the same time, usually one stable and one unstable. Although it could be the newer stable and an old stable. And then lastly, this is not strictly Python related, but it is very important for what's going on. Adafruit debuts the Tariff Talk show or segment to provide the latest on the industry tariffs. Adafruit has started a segment on their Ask an Engineer weekly broadcast to discover the tariffs unfolding worldwide and their effect on engineering/BOM and DIY project costs in the electronics industry. And there's a link there as well. So newsletter details. These all come from the Python for Microcontrollers newsletter, which is a CircuitPython community-run newsletter emailed every Monday. The archives are available at adafruitdaily.com/category/CircuitPython, if I remember right. There's a link in the notes doc. It highlights the latest Python on hardware-related news from around the web, including CircuitPython, Python, and MicroPython developments. We encourage you to submit your own news. You can edit next week's draft on GitHub, submit a pull request to that, or you may also email cpnews@adafruit.com or tag a post with CircuitPython on Mastodon, Blue Sky, or X. Anne, who manages it and does all the goodness of putting it together, says, please subscribe if you have not to date. And we should say here that you can go to adafruitdaily.com, check out the Python for Microcontrollers box to subscribe there. They are separate accounts, separate domain from adafruit.com, so don't worry that the newsletters are separate from the store site. Okay, let's keep moving. And thanks to Anne for running that. The state of CircuitPython libraries and Blinka. This is a statistical overview of the health of the three kind of pillars of the larger CircuitPython project. So I'll go over the numbers overall. I'll do the core, and then we'll ask Tim to do libraries, and I will do Blinka as well. So overall, we had, sorry, let me take a time code. I find time codes useful. Overall, we had 13 pull requests merged from 11 different authors. Some newer names to me or infrequent contributors are Carlosless, maybe. ADCC is relatively new, and My Old Mopar is a new name to me. I'm sure I butchered that. Sorry about that, but thank you for being a pull request author. We had 3 reviewers, myself, Tim, and Dan. Issues-wise, overall, we had 8 closed issues by 4 people and 16 opened by 16 people. So lots of activity there, and more open than closed, which is not always a bad thing. But that's for overall. Let me talk about the core now. So the core is the C code that underpins CircuitPython when running on a microcontroller. It is separate from running on a Raspberry Pi single board computer, which we'll get to in just a second. So for the core, we had 9 pull requests merged from 8 different authors. Some infrequent folks, but folks that I recognize nonetheless, so thank you to them. We had 3 reviewers as well for the core. We have 18 open pull requests, which is very comfortably under the one-page kind of goal of 25 in GitHub. So a thank you to everybody who's churning through those. Issues-wise on the core, we had 4 closed issues by 2 people and 10 open by 10 people, so we're net up 6, which is quite a lot, but we are also in kind of bug finding and fixing mode. We have 774 open issues, and we track the Adafruit-funded prioritization using the milestone system. So this is the stuff that me, Dan, ADCC would be working on. That is to say that if you're a community member and you want guidance and reviews on something that is not that is in the long-term bucket, which is a low priority bucket for us, we're still happy to help guide you on those things. We have 39 open issues on 10.0, which is quite a lot, but those are the things we want to wrap up before 10.0 is stable. We have 0 open issues on 10.0x, which is post-stable release, what we'd want to fix. And then 10xx is longer term in the 10 life cycle. We have 33 open issues there. We have 0 open issues on 9.2x, which is our current stable, and that's great. So we have I feel confident that our current stable thing is stable. Lastly, we have 0 issues not assigned to milestones, so we've triaged stuff, and I think Dan probably put a note that 3 of them were triaged today. With that, let's ask Tim to update us on the state of the libraries.
All right, thanks, Scott. This section covers all of the CircuitPython libraries. There are 2 main sort of groups, so to speak, or buckets that these libraries exist in: the Adafruit libraries and the community bundle libraries. For the Adafruit ones, right now we have 356 libraries. For the community bundle, we have 159. So total together, we have 515 different libraries that support CircuitPython. For the Adafruit libraries, those are all found on GitHub under names like Adafruit _ CircuitPython _ and then the name of whatever library it is. And these tend to be either driver libraries that help you interface with a particular piece of hardware, like a sensor or a breakout device, or helper libraries that let you work on your project code at a higher level without worrying about some of the minute details around networking and other device abstractions and things like that. In terms of pull requests this week across the Adafruit libraries, we had four pull requests merged by 3 different authors. I think the names Scott mentioned earlier are also the ones that are new to me, thanks to my old Mopar and Carlos Celeste for both submitting some updates in libraries this week. We had 3 reviewers, thanks to Scott, Dan, and myself. Of the pull requests that were merged this week, they were all brand new, just 1 day old. And that leaves us at the end of the week, or the end of the last 7 days, I should say, with 55 open pull requests. The oldest one of those is a draft that is hanging on out there at 970 days. The newest one is 1 day. And issues-wise, over the past 7 days, we had 3 issues closed by 3 different people, with 4 new issues opened up by 4 people. And that leaves us right now with 718 open issues. And there are 3 of them currently that are labeled as good first issues, which you can find listed over at circuitpython.org/contributing, which is the website where you should head if you are interested in getting involved in CircuitPython. The first thing where we typically point folks towards who are just wanting to get involved in the project is reviewing open PRs, which is the first thing you'll see at that webpage, circuitpython.org/contributing. You'll see a list of all the open PRs. So those are links over to GitHub. These are changes that have been submitted and they're waiting for a person to come along and review them. And so if you would like to do that, you can click the link, head over to GitHub. This is especially helpful if you either have some knowledge about whatever the particular library is, or especially if you've got the hardware and you're able to test out whatever changes they might be. If you do have a chance to do that, you can click through to GitHub, leave a comment there on the pull request, just letting us know that you looked it over, let us know what you found. You can look it over for spelling, syntax, logic, anything like that. If you do have the hardware, go ahead and try it out on a microcontroller and include in your comment some information letting us know how it went when you tried it out. Once you get comfortable with that process, if you would like to get leveled up to leave official reviews there on GitHub instead of commenting, we can work with you to do that. And if you would like to move on to kind of contributing your own changes rather than reviewing other changes, that is in the mix as well on circuitpython.org/contributing. Along the top, there are a couple navigation links. If you click over to the issues link, you'll find a similar list of links over to GitHub, but these ones represent issues. So there is no proposed change yet. These are waiting for a person who's interested in actually making the proposed change, whether it's fixing a bug, adding a new feature or enhancement to the library or something like that. If you want to get started on one of those, you can click through to GitHub, read about what the issue is, take a look into the code, isolate whatever is there, either look for the bug and fix it or figure out how to add the new feature, and then you could submit your own pull request with that change. If you need help with any part of that process, either the version control or any of the actions checks on GitHub or anything like that, we do have a guide for contributing to CircuitPython using Git and GitHub, which covers all of that stuff. We also have folks who are around throughout the week who are more than happy to help you out. So if you are trying to get involved, whether that's reviewing or contributing, and you're having trouble with any part of the process, just come say hi on Discord in the CircuitPython Dev or Help with CircuitPython channel. Let us know what you are working on and what kind of trouble you're having. We will be happy to help you out. In terms of library updates in the last 7 days, we had a new library in the Adafruit bundle, the anchored group library, which I'll talk about a little bit more later. And then in the community bundle, there was an update to the Pinnacle library, which I was not familiar with, but that's like a circular touch device, which is kind of interesting. So check that stuff out if you are interested. That's what we've got for libraries this week. Thanks.
Thank you for the update, Tim. All right, next up, I will read the updates for Blinka. So Blinka is the CircuitPython compatibility layer for single board computers and MicroPython. So it builds on top of other APIs and presents the CircuitPython API. So you can run CircuitPython kind of code on a single board computer like a Raspberry Pi 5. So in Blinka land, there were 0 pull requests merged, and there are 30 open pull requests across a variety of repos that are related. I will not go into all of those. There is 1 closed issue by 1 person and 2 open by 2 people. So a total of 153 open issues in Blinka land, and there are 146 Blinka supported boards. That's the update for Blinka. And that's the conclusion of the state of CircuitPython libraries in Blinka. Next up, we have Hug Reports. Take another time code. So Hug Reports is the first of 2 round robins. So I will start and we'll go through the list of folks in the notes doc. If you want me to read off what you've written in the notes, just say your text only and I'd be happy to read those for you. Otherwise, I will kind of give you the floor and you can unmute and read it off yourself or talk about it yourself. Hug Reports is a chance to say thank you to the folks for the work that they've been doing. It's great for recognizing all sorts of different things within our community and also reinforcing what we value. So I'll take a time code and I will start. For me, I have a hug to Lady Ada and PT for following all of the tariff changes. I know a lot's changing and a lot is uncertain around electronics and the Adafruit business model. So I just really appreciate that they're on top of it and doing their due diligence, and that I don't have to. I freaked out about buying a car. I don't have to worry about the work side. So thanks to them for doing that. And then also a thank you to Retired Wizard for working on adding multi-display support and getting it working one way and then being open to some larger changes that I think will be more beneficial in the long run. So thanks to Retired Wizard for working on that. Next up, let's go to Dan.
All right. Thanks to ADCC who figured out some idiosyncrasies about flash chips from Microchip. They have an unusual way of doing protection. Thanks to Alan Wright, a support engineer for Microchip, who confirmed what ADCC had found out, and also for Ross from Microchip, who was working on a board that's using a SAMD chip and got Ross involved. So we got some company support on that stuff. And thanks to Anecdata for pointing out, I was working on some Wi-Fi power management, and Anecdata pointed out that the CYW module already had that in a port specific way. I'm going to do it in a non-port specific way, but I didn't realize that we had already implemented it. Okay.
Thank you, Dan. Next up, let's go to ADCC.
Thank you, Scott. So I'd like to thank Dan H. for the help getting the SAM E54 explain board flashed, and for teaching me that the J-Link tools are really better in many cases. And thanks to Tan Scott for going deep into garbage collection. It's really fascinating stuff. And that's it.
Thank you, ADCC. Next up is Foamy Guy.
All right, thanks, Scott. I would like to echo what Bob said. A hug report for Scott for digging deep into the garbage collection in search of improvements for display I/O and animations, or display I/O animations and audio playback, and really just stuff that I think will benefit CircuitPython at large. Really cool stuff. And also a hug report this week, thanks to Justin for continuing to work on secrets.py to settings toml changes in the Learn repo. Justin has done a lot of work converting this code over, and I really appreciate all the work that's gone into it. Thanks.
Thank you, Foamy Guy. All right. Next up, I have notes from Retired Wizard, who says, a hug to Tan Newt, myself, for providing direction on my attempt to implement multiple display support, and what I'm sure is going to turn out to be many future corrections on my efforts down the wrong path. No worries. Thank you, Retired Wizard. Okay. Now for the next section. This is another round robin, but this time it's about status updates. So it's a brief, a few minutes about what you've been working on in the past week and what you plan on working on in the coming week. It's a great way for if somebody's worked on something similar to what you've been working on, for them to give you tips and tricks, or also if somebody wants to collaborate. So it's cool to see all the breadth of what everyone's working on too. So for me, I improved I2S out by making sure it allocates DMA buffers into internal SRAM. PSRAM is pretty slow, and it just really slows down DMA and kind of breaks things. but not completely breaks them, just mostly breaks them. So that's checked in. That's in the absolute latest. I have a pull request to add a working directory to set next code file and adding pathlib to, but there's 2 CMD builds that are too large now, so I got to figure out why that is or turn something off to make it fit. I was testing I think it's an upcoming project. I don't know how much it's been shown, but it's called Lars.io Paint, which is a John Park project to make kind of use the mouse to put down where notes are and have it play the notes using Synth.io. The DMA memory allocation I mentioned before helps a lot making it, but it's still got some hiccups. One is that the mouse from the shop is acting weird and tickling a weird bug with Tiny USB, where the hub sees the mouse disconnect briefly, but so quickly that Tiny USB sees a new connection but doesn't clean up the old one, which means it kind of leaks devices. There's an issue filed on Tiny USB that TAC should be able to get to and should be able to fix. Around that time, looking at the Lars.io stuff, I experimented, kind of inspired by the I2S thing, allocating bitmap buffers outside of the MicroPython heap. I was noticing that the garbage collection collect times, this is when you've tried to do an allocation, it can't find memory for it. And so what it does is it figures out all of the memory that's still in use and implicitly all the memory that's not in use anymore and cleans it up. That collection process is the bulk of the time, I think. And the time the garbage collection took was about 200 milliseconds with this Lars demo. And just by moving the big bitmap buffers of like the different images and stuff to outside of the MicroPython heap, it dropped it to 40 milliseconds, which is, still kind of long, but like way shorter than 200 milliseconds. And it helps the audio playback in particular because we don't re-up audio buffers while we're doing garbage collection. So the buffer that you need for audio can be a lot shorter to bridge those gaps. The other thing I found was that if you print while your program's running, we still run the terminal that shows up by default, and my on-disk font stuff slows that down a little bit if you miss a character. So I may add something where when the terminal's not showing, we won't actually update it. Maybe we'll buffer like some input or something so it could be updated, but we'll see. That is not something I'm working on, but another performance improvement we could do. What I'm actually working on is related to the garbage collection stuff. So I'm adding the ability for MicroPython to track which memory it needs to collect from, basically scan for pointers, and the memory that it doesn't. This should make the collection times much shorter and allow us to ignore large byte arrays and buffers and stuff that we know won't have pointers in them. This is especially true and critical with external PSRAM like the FruitJam has and some of the newer RP2350s have, just because the PSRAM is slow, but also because there's a cache in front of the PSRAM that is shared with Flash. And when you read a lot of different addresses into that memory, you basically evict the stuff that you actually want in it, just to read something once. So by reducing the amount of stuff that we have to collect, we should hopefully improve our Flash performance as well. We'll see. So that's what I'm working on this week is getting this collect stuff going, and it's something that we may actually want to chat. We'll want to chat with upstream MicroPython folks about too, because they have the same problem. I looked and they haven't changed how this is done. Okay, next up, let's get a status update from Dan.
Okay, so for several weeks I've been working on an issue with Chromebooks where they no longer show the boot drives for boards that have SAMD chips on them, starting with a certain version of Chrome OS. So I did some more work on this. I did some logging. I tried some simple changes to see if I could get the bootloader to act more like other UF2 bootloaders that still do work. That didn't help. So I filed an issue with Chrome OS. There's a link in the notes for that. I'm not sure what will happen because a lot of issues like this don't seem to get a lot of attention, but we'll see. There's an outstanding bug that I2S audio on the RP 2040 and 2350, the left and right channels are swapped. This was confusing because 3 out of the 4 PIO programs that are used to generate I2S audio look to be correct, and the one that is correct looks to be wrong. So I'm trying to figure out whether the audio is coming in swapped for some reason. There was a pull request that somebody had made to add some Wi-Fi power management on Espressif. This is not for the processor to sleep, it's more for it to use the radio less often. It defaults to doing a little bit of that, and it could do more or it could do less. So right now that isn't changeable. And so I'm trying to make that more uniform across Espressif and CYW43, which is the radio module that's used on the Pico and the Pico 2Ws. And then after this, I'll stop doing some more individual bug fixes, and I'm going to work on getting an example of changing the partition scheme on 4 megabyte Espressif boards so that we'll have more room and be able to turn on BLEIO and some other things on these boards that only have 4 megabytes of flash rather than 8. So we'll do that on one board and see whether it works. And then we'll do it on all the boards if that works out well. And you'll have to reinstall a new version of the bootloader in order to be able to load these new builds of CircuitPython. So that's it.
All right, thank you, Dan. All right. Next up, let's get a status update from ADCC.
Thank you, Scott. So I fixed a couple of stubborn, and I'm not sure you want to call them bugs, but issues preventing the microchip flash parts from working with CircuitPython. Implemented boot select button entry to safe mode for RP2 boards with the RP2350 parts, and continuing next week, or this week rather, updating ESP-IDF to version 5.4.1. And that's it.
All right, thank you, ADCC. Next, let's hear from Foamy Guy.
All right, thank you. Last week I did another batch of secrets.py to settings toggle changes in Learn Guide pages, and I've started the next one this morning as well. And this is the second to last one that I'm working on now. So we got one more after the one I'm on, and then this will be done, which is nice. I last week submitted or this week I should say, this morning submitted the match 3 game guide that I've been working on for moderation, and I have made a few changes based on feedback for that as well. Last week I did work on a USB SNES like controller guide. So there's a USB SNES controller that's in the Adafruit shop, and so I made a couple of guide pages for that and some CircuitPython example code. I found compatibility issues with certain devices and versions of CircuitPython and filed an issue with all that information. And I also tested a newer version of Pico PO USB with those devices that I found issues with. And then next up, I will work on Arduino example code as well. I released the Adafruit anchored group library and added it to the library bundle. This is a helper library that was used by the launcher code. This gives you a subclass of group that you can place using anchor point and anchor position, similar to labels, so it's easier to place them on the right edge of the screen and the bottom as well, and really anywhere else, like in the center as well. The next thing is a couple of infrastructure fixes in the library CST8XX. That one was always failing its GitHub release action. There was an issue with its permissions that is fixed now, so that library will now make its way to PyPy like it should. And in CircuitPython build tools, there was nothing broken, but we were getting warnings from PyPy about the name of the binary not complying with PEP 625, and I figured out how to fix that just by updating the version of Python that is used to build it inside the container. Over this past weekend, I did a bit of work on a library that I made a while ago called Blinka Display.io Pygame display. It is a way to use Blinka Display.io on CPython on PCs using Pygame window as a display instead of a physical hardware display. And it had kind of languished for a while. It was never updated to work with newer versions of Blinka Display.io, but it does now. I finally brought that up to date. I did have to remove the auto refresh capability because there's issues with threading between Pygame and Display.io. If anyone is interested in trying to work on that, I'm definitely open to PRs, but I am happy enough with the manual refreshing working for now. And then once I got that working, it renewed my interest in Blinka Display.io generally, and so I was scrolling through the issues there and found that bitmap tools is not implemented, so I started working on implementation for bitmap tools inside Blinka Display.io, which will be nice to have, because also display shapes and a couple of the widgets and things use bitmap tools since it started existing. So this will bring more capability into Blinka Display.io. And that is what I've been up to. Thanks.
Thanks a lot, Tim / Foamy Guy. All right, last up, I have notes from Retired Wizard. Typing the wrong thing. Okay, so Retired Wizard says, attempting to wrap my head around MicroPython / CircuitPython finalizers so they can be used for Display.io object releases. I hope to have a draft PR for multiple display support posted this week. And that's it for status updates. Thank you to everyone who's participated and listened in as well. Last up, we have In the Weeds. This is a section where we talk about any other random thing that might be a discussion, could be questions about how things work, blah, blah, blah. But we save it to the end because it can be longer form discussions. We have 2 topics here, so I will ask Dan to introduce the first one.
Okay, this is a question about bundles. So right now we have 3 bundles. One is the Adafruit bundle, which are Adafruit supported libraries. Another one is the community bundle, which is created under the Adafruit organization, but consists of community members who've contributed libraries and helpers. And finally, there's a bundle that is under the CircuitPython organization in GitHub, which is called the CircuitPython org bundle. It's a bit of an orphan child. It's got only 3 libraries in it. They're all related to Display.io, and they have not been updated. This bundle hasn't been updated, or the libraries haven't been updated for at least 2 years. Like the most recent one was about 2 years ago. This particular bundle is not listed on the library page on CircuitPython.org. And it also is not listed, well, it is listed, I think CircUp does try to fetch it sometimes. Not sure about that. So the question is, we had a motivation for this a long time ago, which was perhaps to find a point, and that bundle doesn't really serve a purpose anymore, maybe. So I'd like to refresh my understanding of that. So we could move those libraries to the community bundle and just archive that repo, and then remove the mechanisms that support that bundle, like in CircUp mostly, probably. And then the other idea is that, which depends on the definition, is whether maybe the current community bundle should be under the CircuitPython organization rather than the Adafruit organization. Right now we maintain the bundle, but it consists of non-Adafruit people who are not paid by Adafruit who contribute libraries. So if anybody can re-explain to me the nuances between the 2 the 2 extra bundles, that would be great.
I can a little bit, or at least I can give you what it is to the best of my understanding. So my understanding was that CircuitPython org one, those libraries were, at the time they were created, and the intention was for them to be maintained by a group of folks rather than a single community member. So like Community Bundle has lots of libraries that are just created by an individual member and then added to the bundle. the CircuitPython.org bundle came about during a time when there was a group of maybe 4 or 5 of us or so that were all doing a bunch of stuff with Display.io, which is why all the ones that are there are Display.io related. I think that was the main thing that it ended up getting used for at the time. And those were kind of like, the idea was like, instead of a single person maintaining that this group, I think there maybe is a team or an organization or whatever on GitHub as well, with the folks that were involved in that at the time. I do think, though, certainly since then, the folks involved have kind of filtered in and out and are not working on it as much, certainly. So I think it probably, like, in my mind, it makes the most sense. And I've kind of messed with, like, some of these were libraries that I moved over and some of them were libraries that I worked on. I do personally think it probably makes the most sense right now to just move them from the org bundle over to the community bundle. I can volunteer to take the repos, or if anyone else wants to have them, if the original owners are still around, I'm certainly happy for someone else to have them as well. But failing that, I can take the repos and cookie cutter them so that they get modern infrastructure files, so the builds work and the actions are all updated and everything, and then move them into the community bundle. And then at that point, we could archive or whatever we need to the CircuitPython org one. That is kind of, to the best of my recollection, what the difference was, and then also I think what I think is probably the best path forward for me, I think.
I don't feel like the repos themselves need to move at all, right? Like, because there's no access. There's no access issue, right?
Well, there's no access issue in the fact that Circup works for it, but I mean, I would consider it kind of an access issue that they're not listed on the libraries, right? Like, it would feel better if it would feel better putting work into them if they were more visible. So they could be added to the libraries page,
Right.
and that would help make them more visible. But they could also move to the community bundle, and then they would also just be there because that's already listed, and we wouldn't have them in this third place where they kind of languish a little bit. But I'm also happy to update them where they are as well. In any case, I think the easiest way to get them up to date and actually like working with modern actions and stuff is to re-cookie cutter them. So whether they move to a new bundle or not, I think that's the easiest way.
Well, I agree that they should be moved to the community bundle, but I don't see why the repos themselves need to move back to like the original author. Like, we can just make sure that the people that want to maintain it can keep it under the CircuitPython org.
Yeah, totally. That makes sense. Those, they can just stay in there. I didn't think about that, but yeah, they can just stay in their original home.
If that group ever revived, it could still
Right.
exist. I mean, that's the mechanism for making it community maintainable or something, maintainable by a team.
Right.
But, but bundle, but you don't have to reflect that managerial structure in the eventual choice of bundles.
Right. And it makes sense to me to move the community bundle as well over to the CircuitPython org. I think it's just that the CircuitPython org came after the community bundle, which is why it's...
Yeah, so I think we could do that later. So I think it's like a kind of a low priority task to do the first two things.
Right.
And then an even lower priority task to do the third thing. We would do that with plenty of notice and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think the context for why we have more than one bundle, I think, is important too, where like I had this vision of like, I really would love to get other companies involved in CircuitPython. SparkFun is the one that always like kind of is there in my brain. Like, the goal was that like a company like SparkFun could come along and maintain their own bundle of drivers that they have for their boards. And so it was a good thing that we were like, our tooling like Circup scaled to multiple bundles to demonstrate that. But the reality is it's been 8 years and we haven't found another company that's as involved as Adafruit is.
It is also worth noting on the Circup front, there is now, which is newer as well, I don't think this existed at the time, but there is now support for kind of like adding ad hoc bundles. So there's like a font bundle and maybe one or two other ones, but there's definitely a font one, which is it is a bundle. It has all the right files to be a bundle. It's it's just kind of owned. I think it's owned by Jeff.
Right.
And you can run a command to add it. So that would still be a possibility, just not a thing that works without you running the setup command.
Okay, well so you could put it on your to-do list.
Yep.
I guess, and that would be great. Thanks.
So like the only reason to consolidate the CircuitPython org bundle into the CircuitPython community bundle is that the community bundle's more active and therefore better maintained?
Yes,
Or
I think
very much.
in my mind, the main sort of two things is kind of two-pronged in my mind is to get it so that it is listed on the libraries, which makes it more visible, which obviously that could be solved the other way as well by just listing it, the org one there.
Right.
And then the second one is because the community bundle gets more eyes on it, gets more action on it. It would, like, I suspect if they were in the community bundle, it's more likely they would have been updated sometime in the last 2 years, basically.
Right.
Just because like somebody would have found out that they weren't working with the new version of Display.io or something like that.
Right. Is there any, because there's these other bespoke bundles, like do we want to have some like circup file that has all the bundles in it that all of the other tooling uses? Like the circuitpython.org libraries page uses, so that we can have multiple bundles?
Well, the CircuitPython org page is not data-driven when it comes to the library, the bundles.
Oh, okay. It's just fixed.
It's just a copy-paste with some changes. And there's only 2, so yeah.
Well, there's more than 3, right? Like that was what Tim was just saying. Like the font bundle is not documented there, and I think
Well, the font bundle isn't listed there. So maybe that's another task, is to figure out where to list those. Yeah.
right. Like, does Neradoc have a bundle for all of the different keyboard layouts?
It's in his repo. No, not a
that
bundle.
another one?
No. I don't think so.
I don't know. I guess I'm saying, like, yeah, it's fine to move the CircuitPython.org bundle stuff into the community, but, like, is that really what we want to do? Or do we just need to, like, first class it?
I think there are 2 things going on here. One is that bundle is only separate because it reflected an underlying management structure about who was maintaining it. That was being
Right.
maintained in a group rather than
Right.
individuals.
Right.
So there's no reason for that to be visible, for that decision to be visible. That's not an interesting distinction to the people who are going to use those libraries, I guess I would say. It's just where the repos for the libraries live. And so to have all the bundles in one place. Yeah, and then the idea of like, oh, there are other bundles, that would be great too. And to have a data-driven, to have a list of bundles,
All right.
that's a whole other mechanism to invent, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess, yeah, just having the bundle proxy for who's supporting it is like, yeah. My hope was that the like CircuitPython.org teams would be more reliably supporting something than less. But I think the reality is that's not true.
Yeah, I think the deal is the team of folks that were around have mostly filtered in and out to where it's like I'm the main one that's still kind of consistently working on stuff, although I haven't touched any of these in years, obviously.
Right.
And then if we did move the community bundle to the CircuitPython organization, to the CircuitPython organization, that would make clearer who maintains the third party,
Right.
the community supported libraries. So,
Yeah, I think that's fine.
yeah. Okay. All right. Sounds good
All right.
to me.
Thanks.
Now, thanks for explaining
Yeah.
the original motivation.
Yeah, I mean, like, you know me, I like to like think far ahead, and
Yeah. Yeah.
I would still love it if we had companies come along and like invest in CircuitPython, but that's not an easy task.
Right. It hasn't happened. It hasn't. Right.
Okay, so I think we're done with that topic. I have the other topic here. So I'm going on paternity leave again in 3 weeks, and I will be out for 8 weeks after that. I will be part-time after that as well, so I will likely not be hosting these meetings. I won't be for the 8 weeks, and I likely won't do it while I'm part-time as well. So That will leave our meeting host rotation with only 3 people, Dan, Tim, and Liz. So if anyone is interested in hosting this meeting as well, we'd love to add more folks to the rotation so that we have to all do it less individually. If you're interested, you can DM me on Discord, you can email me, scott@adafruit.com, or you can just drop it in the chat if you're willing to do that publicly too. But yeah, it would be great to get more folks in the rotation. Also, because stuff happens, people get sick. 3 is a little thin for backing each other up too. There's some really good documentation that Kattni made when we started doing this, so it should be relatively easy to ramp up some new people thanks to Kattni. So yeah, just let me know if you're interested. And if you're in this meeting live, you match the requirements. And if you listened all the way to the end, thank you as well. So any comments on that from anybody else?
I had an idea which is not necessarily a good idea at all, which is whether we might want to have the meetings every 2 weeks. 2 weeks seems like a little too long, but I don't know what to say.
Mm-hmm.
And it was maybe that might be temporary, but I was thinking about it more about you being gone for a shorter period of time. But if it's sort of through your part-time thing, that would be 2 weeks, 2-week intervals for a long time.
Yeah, basically through the end of the year.
Yeah, and I think the trouble with 2 weeks is that then it drops off people's radar.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I like to organize myself around every week.
Yeah.
But yeah, so if anybody's interested, let us know. We'd love the help. And if you have scheduling ideas, feel free to let us know too. Okay, let's wrap.
And anybody who came in wouldn't have to do it as the 4th person. If we had more than one volunteer, then they could do it less frequently. So.
Right. Yeah, and you're not committed forever either. So Paul Cutler has done it for a while and then said, "Hey, I'm busy, I can't do it anymore," and that's totally. We appreciate the help that we can get. Don't feel overcommitted either. All right. Okay, let me wrap us up. So this has been the CircuitPython weekly meeting for April 14th, 2025. Thanks to everybody who attended and participated, whether through Notestock or through live. If you want to support Adafruit and CircuitPython, and those of us that work on CircuitPython, consider purchasing for the Adafruit shop, adafruit.com, or Adafruit products from other resellers. The video of this meeting will be released on YouTube at youtube.com/Adafruit, and the podcast will be available on major podcast services, aka the audio from the YouTube video gets put out as a podcast. It will also be featured in the Python for Microcontrollers newsletter. Visit adafruitdaily.com to subscribe there. The next meeting will be held next Monday as usual at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. This meeting is held on the Adafruit Discord, which you can join by going to the URL adafru.it/discord. To be notified about the meeting and any changes to the time or day, you can ask to be added to the @CircuitPython role in Discord. We don't ping you very often, so don't feel like we will. With that, we hope to see you all next week. Thank you to everyone who's part of this community.